My name is Merle Hadley. I'm 68 years old, retired, and living alone in a small lake town in Oregon. The rain had been tapping gently against the window since early morning. It was the kind of April rain Lakeview was known for: soft, persistent, and oddly comforting. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping Earl Grey, no sugar, just a splash of milk, as always. The tea had gone cold, but I barely noticed. I was watching the raindrops collect on the glass and slide down like tiny dancers in slow motion. There was a time when rainy mornings like this brought me peace. These days they only brought silence. A kind of silence that didn't soothe, but pressed in, thick and heavy. I've lived in this house for over 40 years, taught math at Lakeview High for just as long, explained the elegance of logic, the certainty of numbers to thousands of students, and now, in retirement, I spend most days alone. My husband Frank passed away 10 years ago. One minute we were planning a summer getaway, and the next, I was a widow. Our only son, Grant, is 42 now. He lives nearby but visits rarely. He has a wife, Tabitha, and 2 kids, Octavia, 16, and Fletcher, 12. The last time I saw them was Christmas, and even then it felt like I was intruding into someone else's life. Today's just another Tuesday. Groceries. Maybe the library if the rain lets up. But somewhere in the back of my mind, one thought kept tapping like the rain. My birthday is in 3 days, and I don't know if anyone will remember. The phone rang just as I was wiping down the counter. I almost didn't answer it these days. It's usually a robocall or a political survey, but something told me to pick up. "Mrs. Hadley," a cheerful female voice asked. "This is Patricia from Lakeview Glamour Salon. Just calling to confirm your appointment for tomorrow at 10. "I'm sorry, I think you've got the wrong person. I didn't make an appointment." A pause. "It's for a wash and style, booked under your name." I was about to correct her when I stopped myself. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was Dorothy, my neighbor, playing fairy godmother again. Or maybe I just needed a change, even if it came from a mix-up. "You know what? I'll be there," I said. After hanging up, I wandered upstairs and opened my closet, mostly old blouses and work skirts. But in the back, still wrapped in its original dry cleaning bag, hung the sky blue dress Frank gave me on our last anniversary. "To match your eyes," he had said with a grin. I held it against me in front of the mirror. The face staring back had changed more lines, more gray, a little slouch, but the eyes were the same, blue and quiet. Frank would have noticed that. He always noticed. And I missed that kind of noticing. Later that afternoon I made myself do something I hadn't done in a long while. I called Grant. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Hey Mom, everything okay?" His tone was already guarded, like he was bracing for a guilt trip. "I just wanted to remind you that my birthday's this Friday. I was hoping maybe you, Tabitha, and the kids might stop by." There was a pause. I could hear murmurs. He was clearly checking with her. "Friday's tough, Mom. Tab's got a product launch at work. Octavia's got rehearsal. Fletcher's swim. Maybe the weekend?" "It's fine," I said quickly, but my voice cracked more than I'd meant it to. More murmurs. Then he said, "You know what? We could swing by for a couple hours Friday afternoon. 2:00. My breath caught. That would be wonderful. And just like that, hope returned, small and fragile, but there. The next 2 days passed in a flurry of preparation. I didn't want to overdo it, but I also couldn't help myself. I cleaned every corner of the house, even the baseboards. I went to the salon where Patricia gave me a gentle trim and added a soft silver tone that made my natural gray shine. "You look 10 years younger," she said. I smiled, trying to believe her. I pulled out the sky blue dress from the closet. It still fit. I paired it with navy slacks and a delicate silver necklace Frank gave me on our 20th anniversary. I baked the eggplant lasagna Grant used to beg for as a boy, made a chocolate pecan cake from scratch, a fresh veggie salad for Octavia, in case she was still on that vegetarian kick, and chocolate chip cookies, Fletcher's childhood favorite. Friday arrived clear and bright after a week of rain. It felt like a good omen. By 1:30, the table was set. Nothing fancy, just warm and thoughtful. I placed a small vase of spring flowers from the garden in the center. Everything looked perfect. Then came the waiting. At exactly 2:00, a car pulled into the driveway. My heart jumped. I opened the door with a smile. Grant gave me an awkward one-arm hug, barely touching my shoulder. Tabitha offered a polite nod. She was dressed in a tailored gray pantsuit and pearl earrings poised, polished, distant. The kids trailed behind. Octavia barely looked up from her phone. Fletcher muttered hello, already halfway into the living room. "It smells good," Grant said, sniffing. "It's just lasagna," I replied. "Your favorite." "We said you didn't need to cook, Mom," he replied. "I know, I just wanted to." We sat in the living room. I asked about their work, the kids' school. My questions got one-word answers or vague shrugs. The air felt tight. I suggested we move to the dining table. The food brought a slight improvement. Grant complimented the lasagna. Octavia said the salad was fine. Fletcher even took seconds silently. Tabitha barely ate, claiming she was watching her figure. I tried to stay cheerful, asked Octavia about her school play. "Juliet," she said flatly. "That's wonderful. Maybe I could come watch." She looked at her mom, panicked. "We only have 4 tickets," Tabitha said smoothly, "and her other grandmother's already using one." "Oh," I said quietly, "of course." I turned to Fletcher. "Still playing soccer?" "Swimming now." "That's great. Your grandpa was a swimmer too. I'd love to see you compete sometime." "Next season," Grant mumbled. I nodded and rose to get the cake. When I came back, Grant stood up. "We can't stay long. Tab's got a meeting at 5. "Of course. But before you go, here's your gift," Tabitha said, pulling out a box tied with a ribbon. "A gift," I said, genuinely surprised. "Open it," Grant urged, a strange glint in his eye. I untied the ribbon, lifted the lid, and found nothing. The box was completely empty. I looked up, confused. They burst into laughter. "You're just like the box," Grant said. "Empty inside." "Perfect match," Tabitha added. Octavia filmed my face on her phone. Fletcher giggled, whispering pacifier. The box trembled in my hands, and something inside me shattered. For a long moment I couldn't speak. I looked at my son, my daughter-in-law, my grandchildren, faces I once loved more than anything. Now they were twisted in laughter at my expense. The birthday meal I had prepared with such care sat untouched on the table. The house I kept spotless for them felt like a stage for humiliation. "Is this a joke?" I asked quietly. "Oh, come on, Mom," Grant chuckled. "Don't take it so seriously." "It's just family humor," Tabitha added, still smiling. I pressed the lid back onto the box. My hand shook, but my voice didn't. "We have very different ideas of what family means." Grant started to speak, but I held up a hand. "You should go. Tabitha has a meeting, remember?" Their laughter died. They hadn't expected this. They were waiting for the tears, for me to beg, for another one of those awkward silences I used to fill with forgiveness. But I didn't cry. I didn't plead. I walked them to the door without a word. Grant tried to take my hand. I pulled away. "We'll call you this weekend," he said, clearly thrown off. "Don't bother." I closed the door behind them. The hallway fell silent again. I sat on the floor, back against the door, the empty box still in my lap. Empty. That's what they thought I was. That's how little I meant to them. 40 years of teaching, a home filled with love and effort, a husband I adored, a son I raised with care, none of it mattered now. And that's when the sorrow hardened into resolve. I stood up, knees aching. I moved on autopilot, clearing the dishes, wiping the table. The kitchen was spotless again, as if the humiliation never happened. But it did. And I wasn't going to forget it. Upstairs, I pulled open the nightstand drawer and reached for a number I hadn't dialed in years. Robert Fisher, the attorney who handled Frank's estate. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Robert, this is Merle Hadley, Frank's widow." There was a pause. "Merle, of course. What can I do for you?" "I need to change my will," I said calmly. "And one more thing. This is very urgent." In the days that followed, I moved with quiet purpose. I met with Robert Fisher the very next morning. We reviewed everything, my will, my assets, my options. Frank had left me more than anyone knew, nearly $2 million in stocks, a $500,000 investment account, and a valuable lakeside property that had appreciated beautifully over the years. When Frank passed, I had chosen not to tell Grant about the full extent of our wealth. I wanted him to succeed on his own. I had hoped that one day, when I was gone, he and his children would inherit it all and be proud of what we'd left them. But they had proven unworthy. Robert raised his eyebrows when I told him I wanted to leave everything to charitable causes. The Lakeview Teachers Foundation, the public library, the animal shelter, and a new scholarship in Frank's name for engineering students. "And your son?" he asked gently. "He gets nothing," I said, my voice clear. We added a no-contest clause to the will, just in case they tried to fight it later. I also scheduled a full medical capacity assessment and passed it without issue. Everything was being documented airtight. Next, I listed the lakeside property. We didn't even need to advertise. A developer had been eyeing it for months. Within 3 weeks, it sold for $1.2 million. And that's when the final part of my plan took shape. I called Dorothy. "I want to invite them over for dinner," I said. "To reconcile?" she asked, eyebrow raised. "To give them one last show." Dorothy grinned. "Front row seat for the finale? Count me in." We spent Saturday preparing. I cooked everything from scratch: turkey, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, apple pie. Every dish was a memory from Grant's childhood. But this meal wasn't for nostalgia, it was for closure. At 6 sharp on Sunday evening, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to see them all dressed far too nicely for a casual dinner. Tabitha had on pearls again. Grant wore a blazer. Even the kids looked polished. They thought I was going to grovel, apologize, maybe offer them a second chance at the inheritance. Instead, I welcomed them with a smile and led them to the table. Dorothy sat quietly at the far end, a silent witness. Dinner was filled with small talk. They responded more politely than usual, clearly sensing something was coming. Finally, as dessert sat untouched in the center of the table, I stood. "I want to say something, I said. They straightened in their seats. Tabitha smiled like a cat ready to pounce. "I invited you here tonight to apologize," I began, "but not for what you think." I paused, letting the silence settle. "I want to apologize for letting you treat me with such disrespect all these years, for allowing your indifference, your dismissive tone, your selfishness to go unchecked." Tabitha's smile faltered. Grant frowned. "That empty box on my birthday was a gift," I continued. "Not because of what was inside, but because of what it revealed." I turned to the sideboard and pulled out a folder. "This is a copy of my revised will." I laid it on the table. "You'll find that none of you are mentioned in it. Everything, every last cent is going elsewhere." Tabitha's face went pale. Grant sputtered. "I also sold the lakeside lot. For $1.2 million. That money's already donated. I've also bought a new home. In Santa Barbara." I looked each of them in the eye. "I'm starting over." They erupted. Grant yelled. Tabitha shouted. Octavia dropped her phone. Fletcher stared, wide-eyed. And for the first time in years, I felt no fear. Only peace. 2 weeks after the dinner, I left Lakeview for good. The moving truck came early. I had already said goodbye to my neighbors, donated what I didn't need, and packed only the essentials: books, photo albums, Frank's old watch, and my favorite armchair. Everything else, furniture, dishes, trinkets, was part of a past I no longer wanted to carry. Dorothy drove us down the coast in her dusty blue sedan. We took our time, stopping at roadside motels, breathing in sea air, and talking like teenagers running away to start new lives. In many ways, that's exactly what we were doing. Our new home in Santa Barbara was more than I imagined. A small single-story cottage with pale yellow siding and white shutters. A flower garden in the front, a little patio in the back, and the ocean just 10 minutes away by foot. The house felt like a blank canvas, and for the first time in years, I looked forward to filling it. Dorothy moved into a house just 2 blocks down. Her sister Eleanor lived around the corner and welcomed us with open arms and a bottle of champagne. "To freedom," she toasted. I unpacked slowly, intentionally. Each item I placed had meaning. I wasn't just setting up a home. I was setting down roots. Within a month, I joined the local library's volunteer program and started helping with math tutoring for high schoolers. I joined a gardening club, attended weekend farmers markets, and took an art class, something I'd always wanted to try. One evening, Eleanor invited us to a backyard barbecue. That's where I met Gordon Parker, a retired literature professor, widowed, 72, with kind eyes and a quiet wit. He complimented my blouse, asked about my teaching years, and told me I looked like someone who had stories worth telling. Over the next few weeks, we struck up a friendship: walks along the beach, coffee on my patio. Conversations about books, aging, regret, and resilience. I never expected companionship at this stage in life, but there he was, and I found myself looking forward to his visits. Back in Lakeview, Grant called once or twice a month. Our conversations were brief and polite. He no longer asked about the will. I think he finally realized it was over. One evening, out of nowhere, he asked, "Are you happy there, Mom?" I paused. "Yes, Grant," I said honestly. "I really am." And for the first time, I think he believed me. Dorothy was right. Sometimes, the second chapter of your life is the one you write for yourself. Not out of obligation, not out of guilt, but because you finally remembered who you are. And you're ready to live for her. Nearly a year had passed since the dinner. Spring had arrived again. The roses in my garden planted with Gordon's help were blooming, pale pink and full of life. I had built a peaceful routine, morning walks, library volunteering, evenings spent with Dorothy, and our growing circle of friends. Then one morning, a letter arrived. Not an email, not a voicemail. A real letter, handwritten, stamped, addressed to me in careful, looping script. The return name stopped me cold. Octavia Hadley. I hesitated before opening it, unsure of what I'd find inside. Dorothy, who had dropped by for coffee, nudged me gently. "Go on, open it. Whatever it is, you're strong enough now." I unfolded the paper. "Dear Grandma, I don't know if you'll read this or throw it away, and I wouldn't blame you either way, but I need to write this. I need to say I'm sorry. I was awful to you, we all were. That birthday, the box, I can't even think about it without shame. After you left, things at home changed. Mom and Dad fight all the time now. Dad says he never wanted things to turn out this way. I found some old photos of you and Grandpa. You both looked happy. Dad looked different too. Softer. Kinder. I don't know what happened to us. I'm starting college soon, studying psychology. I want to understand why people treat those they love so badly sometimes. I don't know if you can forgive me, but I hope someday you'll want to talk again. Love, Octavia." I reread the letter twice, then pressed it gently against my chest. It didn't undo the hurt, but it lit something I thought I'd lost completely. A quiet, cautious hope. I didn't reply to Octavia's letter right away. I needed time not to forgive, but to understand what forgiveness would mean now. A week later, I sat on the patio with a cup of tea, watching the wind play in the roses. I picked up a pen and began to write. "Dear Octavia, thank you for your letter. It meant more to me than you can imagine. I've never stopped loving you. People make mistakes. What matters is what they do after. I've built a life here I'm proud of. It's quiet, it's peaceful, it's mine. You're welcome to visit me whenever you're ready. We won't talk about the past right away. We'll walk along the beach, eat pie, start over. With love, Grandma Merle." I sealed the envelope and walked it to the post office myself. Some wounds don't close perfectly, but they still heal. And sometimes the most powerful revenge is peace.